All right, so it's 6 o'clock. We're going to start our June board meeting. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance and then followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. All right, Mr. Martin.
Yes, ma'am. First on the agenda is our consent agenda. We have that every month. Are there any questions? With that, I'd like to make the recommendation that the consent agenda, financial report, and board minutes of the regular board meeting held on May 13, 2024 be approved as submitted.
So we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
Motion by Jessica. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sarah. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right.
All right, next we have an update on student achievement success. And Ms. Bennett has been kind enough to stay here in the summer to go over what the primary's done with math assessment this year.
No rest for the weary, right?
No rest, absolutely not.
Give me just a second. There we go. And I do not
Oh,
point
that's
at
fine,
you.
that's fine. All right, I'm going to go over a little bit about the great success that we've had over the course of the 3 years, and especially this spring, that the primaries had with our math. So just where we started back in the spring of 21 to where we are now in the spring of 24. So in math in 21, kindergarten's achievement percentile was 91%, and their growth percentile was at 43. First grade was at 53 and 15, and second grade was at 37 and 24. In the spring of 24, kindergarten was at 97 with a growth percentile of 99. First grade was at 76 with a growth of 69, and second grade was 63% achievement and 88 for the school growth percentile. So we've seen a lot of really good growth in the course of the last 3 years.
That's super remarkable. I mean,
Sorry, I thought he was
and so I guess my question is, what do you attribute that to? Is that because 21's post-COVID and that's lower post-COVID coming back, or is it something else?
I think that definitely could be. In 21, that was the spring before I came, so I'm not really sure. I mean, I think there was probably a lot of other aspects going on. I know in the 3 years, we worked really hard on our PLCs, and they're working really, really well. Our teams are working well together, and we've got that collective advocacy that they want all of our kids to grow, and they're learning from each other. I think also our work with visible learning this last year really did, we saw a lot of improvement with that in all aspects in reading and math.
I think the collective work of everyone in that building is amazing. When you go in there, the level of work they're doing, the level of attention, it's special. So are you ready for the next slide? Sorry.
No, you're fine. Next is reading. And so kindergarten in 21 was at 70% and 13 on growth. First grade was 57 and 29. Second grade was 41 and 52. And then this spring in 24, we saw huge growth. Kindergarten's at 92 and 98. First grade is at 63 and 31. And second grade was 61% achievement and 91 for student growth. So I can't just brag on our staff. It takes all of us to make it work, and they have worked so hard, and they have put in so much time and effort to really make this happen. So Ms. Day and I are super proud of all of our staff.
That's amazing. Those are phenomenal numbers.
Is that it?
That's right. This is just the percents from this year in the spring of our school. So as a school in reading, our growth was at 61%, and our achievement was 65% of students met the achievement. In math, our growth was 67%, and achievement was at 69. So that's taking into account, for growth and achievement, they have to have a fall score. So I think it was out of 500, and I think it was 19 kids that those numbers are based off of.
And that's kindergarten first and second.
Yeah, that is the whole school combined. So I wanted to shout out to some of the individual successes that we had in our building. So this was the % increase in students who met growth goals from winter to spring. So Ms. Evans in kindergarten had 31% more of her students met growth in math and 41 in reading. Ms. Trammell in first grade had 26 and 45% more in reading, and then Ms. Hooten in second grade had 18 in math and 13 in reading. So some of it, and this is, I mean, it's just to highlight one from each grade level that really was over the top, we felt like, but every grade had lots of stories very similar to this. Wish we could have put them all up there.
So this last year, I got to spend a day each month with our leadership team, our admin team down in Little Rock. And one of the big things that they really focused on was success and celebrating that success. How did you celebrate these teachers with these phenomenal growth numbers?
So the next to last day of school, we had a breakfast. And I had a slideshow very, very similar to this. A lot of these graphs I took from the slideshow that I did for the staff. And so we all got together. I fed them breakfast. It was right before the bell rang. I had them all come in, and we just talked about, this is amazing. Look at what you guys have done. And I really wanted to capitalize on the winter to spring because we did make some changes in our instruction after we got our winter scores in. We were like, some of these weren't where we wanted them to be. What do we need to do? What can we change? And so I wanted to highlight the changes that we've made. We saw huge growth and just minor things. I was like, hey, let's just try this and see how it works. And so we saw huge growth in that. So I wanted to make sure that I wanted them to leave for summer knowing the great work that they did. And I did text them all before we came to it. I was like, watch the school board meeting tonight. So hopefully they're watching.
That's awesome.
Okay, so these are all of our teachers who had 80%.
Oh, I am so sorry.
That's okay. It's 80% and above of students who met projected growth goals. So this was all of our K-2 teachers who had percents of 80% and above who their class met their growth goals. We have to shout out Ms. Stewart. She had 100% growth in math. Every single one of her kids met their growth goals. And that's something I've only seen happen a couple of times, so we really wanted to shout that out. Again, when we met the day before the end of school, I shouted out to Mullins, who was really extraordinary. At 94, 93, 100, those are all just amazing growth scores.
And Miss Pyle's a first-year teacher, isn't she?
She is. Yeah. So we were really lucky. She's done an amazing job. And then our last page, we wanted to shout out to some of our special education students who grew at least 20 points in both reading and math on their RIT scores. And so we had 5 students that we wanted to acknowledge. Student A grew 22 points in math and 46 points in reading. Student B, 31 in math, 39 in reading. C was 26 points in math and 43 in reading. Student D was 26 in math and 42 in reading. And student E was 40 in math and 42 in reading. So we are, like I said, it takes all of us. Our special education teachers have really outdone themselves. They've worked really hard in working with our gen ed teachers, and just all of that goes into this kind of success.
This is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. This is great.
I know Ms. Bennett didn't talk about it much, but the work that they're doing with PLCs, visible learning, conscious discipline, it's taking it all together, and when that happens, great things occur, and the work that they're doing down there is phenomenal. So we're very proud of them and very grateful for them being there.
Absolutely.
Okay, up next is our action items, and our first is our cybersecurity software purchase. This is a renewal for, oh my goodness, Solution Networks. CrowdStrike is what it's called. And this, when you see the 375 on the front key, that's how many adult licensed computers that we have. It's to make sure that we are protected for data breaches and whatnot through there. And it is just a continuation. Mr. Scott is here from technology. Would you like to add anything? I know I pushed that really bad.
The CrowdStrike is cybersecurity software, and we put it on our devices to keep bad actors from trying to install software and steal information. It's a really nice tool to have.
Yeah, and when you get into, you always see the the articles about ransomware from municipalities, school districts, hospitals, and whatnot. This helps to keep that from occurring. It's not a guarantee, but it helps us to prevent that from happening, from sharing our students' and our staff's personal and vital information.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay. With that, I'd like to make the recommendation that we approve cybersecurity software from Network Solutions in the amount of $38,654.85.
All right, so we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion as presented.
All right, motion by Ryan. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sarah. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
Up next, we have an MOU with Open Avenues for Arkansas Rehabilitation Services. And I know Dr. Bassett's here, but what this is for us to have pre-employment transition services for our students with on 504 and special needs IEPs. And so it's a really good process that we have used for several years, and it helps integrate them into the workforce, and it's just good stuff. Dr. Bassett?
100%. I think we've been very fortunate. Last year, we had 100% employment of our seniors. We're looking forward to juniors and seniors this year having that same opportunity. It's them being out in the community is the most important thing in the work we can do sometimes. So it's very exciting.
And I know last year you had mentioned that there was only a couple companies right now interested. How many how many more companies? Four.
And actually, we're partnering with Unbridled this summer, and so we're excited to bring them alongside too for some of these students that need that those volunteer hours. They're starting to go ahead and let some of them start coming in the summer and get used to the organization. So we're looking forward to that.
And I will tell you, these kids, these students are excited. So when I got to go to the Special Olympics, they were all telling me about their jobs and telling me to come visit them at their work. So it was very exciting that they were all pumped about it. So that's awesome.
Any other questions? Okay, with that, I'd like to make the recommendation that we approve the MOU for pre-employment transition services with Open Avenues Arkansas Rehabilitation Services.
All right, so we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion? I'll motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jessica. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
All right, up next, we have another MOU, and that is with Surratt Therapy. And what this is for our occupational therapy services. We've used them for several years now for OT, and I don't believe anything changes in the agreement, not even the price point.
They didn't give us a price increase?
No.
I like it.
They're one of the few vendors this year.
I like it.
Any questions? Okay, with that, I'd like to make the recommendation that we approve the MOU for occupational therapy services with Surratt Therapy Services Incorporated.
All right, so we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
Motion by Sarah. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ryan. Any further discussion? All in favor?
All right, up next, we have board transfers. This has cooled down a little bit since we had school choice last month, but we have 5 students wanting petitioning to transfer in and 3 petitioning to transfer out. We have space for all 5 right now. We have ample space, especially in kindergarten. We're currently at 93, which it will increase over the summer, don't get me wrong. So that's kind of where we are. We always recommend we transfer in and transfer out if we have space. Any questions? Okay. With that, I'd like to make the recommendation that we approve the board-to-board transfers as presented.
All right, so we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion. as
Motion
presented.
by Ryan. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sarah. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay.
Up next, educational, we have student services, sorry. And we have policy updates for the 2014 school year. Mr. Rainey, turn it over to you.
In our review of our policies and current practice, we had 2 policies that we wanted to look at updating. policy 4.23B, which covers vaping and e-cigarette. You can see on the policy, we've got language that was stricken through for first violation and second violation under that policy. And so we rewrote. Ms. Markfeld and myself initially met with counselors from the junior high and the high school and some of our SROs about our policy and our current practices. And we felt like with 4.23B, we were doing some disciplinary stuff, but there really wasn't any education or diversion type things for our students. And so we wanted to make sure that we included that in our policy. So we've updated just a little bit the practice and the policy, and then we had a section that I don't know, my version's just all black and white, but up top, the second paragraph, it says students found in violation of this policy in grades K4 are subject to discipline measures as determined by the campus administration. Initially, K-12 students all were under the same policy. And so, if we had a kindergartner or a 5-year-old bring let's say a vape to school that they found, on at home or wherever, they were subject to the same disciplinary measures that a senior would be.
And a lot of times when we have that occur, that's not a student discipline issue. That's helping the parents.
And so we wanted to give a little bit of flexibility for the different grade bands and those things. So we have an update to the vaping policy, and you can see what has been stricken through and then what is new language. And all of this stuff that you read is at a minimum. And so, if we got into distribution and different things, it allows us some flexibility that we didn't have in language previous. And then second to that, 4.24 is our drug and alcohol policy. Same thing, you can see the first violation, language that was stricken through. And then the second and subsequent violations all were the same thing on our previous policy. And so under a second violation of our drug and alcohol policy, it's all kind of been rewritten and added, but we didn't feel like the same thing, that we had very good educational pieces in there. It was a lot of kind of, don't do this and here's the punishment, but we weren't really supporting the child with choices and education and why these things are maybe harmful to you down the road. And so our counselors and stuff felt like this was good language. We met with them, we updated the policy, then we followed up with a district committee that included high school, junior high principals, Mr. Martin, Ms. Taylor, myself, and we all got together, reviewed the policy, made a few more changes, and felt like this is best for our students going forward. And so to update and clean up the language a little bit on those two policies.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So that's great. I appreciate you reviewing and getting input from a lot of people. So I'm not trying to be critical. I'm looking at both policies and I'm seeing that it can be reduced to 5 days. And if I see optional, the diversion thing that we're wanting kids to do in this situation, I see as optional.
So the thing became, if we say, Ms. Tabor has to go to this class and she doesn't attend, am I going to keep her out of school for the next 45 days until she does, or am I going to put a limit on it? And so that's why it says 5 days reduced to this. So if the parent chose not to do it, or the student chose not to do it, at some point it's got to give it back in class and back in education. So that's what
That makes perfect
that's
sense.
where the group would prevent that. Yes, sir.
But when the
We
punishment,
ask the same questions.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yes, sir.
but when the punishment's dealt out, you're saying you're gonna have 3 days up to 5 days if you don't complete this.
Yeah. If you were caught with a vape, you got 5 days of ISS. If you take this course, we'll reduce it to 3 and get you back in
Gotcha.
school or class or whatever. Yes, ma'am. And we're working with our principals right now, almost 100% of the time. We do the course, we reduce it, we go on, but we felt like we needed a cap.
Yep.
So that we can move on with education. Yes, ma'am.
Any concerns with K through 4 being subjective?
Do you want me to answer that?
Go ahead.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I think we need some administrator discretion in that. We can literally have a primary school child pick up the vape off the coffee table or whatnot, and they're literally just toting it around in their backpack and just pull it out, and there it is. I mean, now, that's why there needs to be some discretion. Now, there's that end of fourth grade to get into fifth grade, that's not, you're just 90 days difference in the age of the child, that would be considered as well. But we have had a couple of instances where a primary school child or an elementary child's brought a vape to school and may not even have a cartridge in it, maybe an old one and whatnot, but it's still technically a vape.
And then do we feel that that same language needs to apply over to the drugs and alcohol for it to be subjective for K-4?
Well, K through 4, when you look at the expulsion policy, it's very explicit on what qualifies for K through 4 to be expelled, and it's like a weapon, extreme violence, and things like that.
Well, we added it for the vape, so I didn't know if we needed to add
Oh.
that same verbiage over to the drugs and alcohol.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Just to be consistent,
Yes, ma'am, we could. You
just the verbiage.
do. You got it. The top red line on here, you
Yep.
gotcha.
We certainly can.
Yeah, that's just for consistency. Any other discussion on the policies?
No, I just appreciate recognizing that that was not a child, issue typically in kindergarten, and being able for the child to have
And
some
on
advocacy.
4.24, we need to be able to, students make mistakes, but there's different levels of mistakes. Distributing is a
Right.
is a much more severe choice than just a first offense. And the way our policy was written, someone who was passing, who was distributing, was the same as someone who wasn't, and those are two different
Right.
offenses.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. With that, I would like to make the recommendation to approve the policy amendments as presented with the addition of students found in violation of this policy in grades K through 4 subject to discipline measures as determined by campus administration to be added to policy 4.24 as well.
All right, so we have a recommendation as presented. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
All right, motion by Sarah. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Is it you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, second by Jessica. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay.
Up next is food service prices, lunch prices for the 24-25 school year. Every year, we complete the paid lunch equity calculator, and we are requesting a 10-cent increase to student and adult breakfast and lunch. So we'll go to our proposals to do go to $1.80 for students for breakfast, $2.50 for adults, and lunch prices. Grades K through 6 would be $2.40, and grades 7 through 12 would be $2.65. And adult lunches would go, I believe, from $4.60 something, I think $4.65 to $5.
And I'm assuming it's just because the cost of food in general has
Yes,
gone
ma'am.
up. I mean,
Yes,
even
ma'am.
if
We
you
went
go to
several
Walmart,
years,
yeah.
We were carrying a positive balance, but the price of food wasn't increasing the way it is now. I mean, over the past 2 to 3 years, our food bill has gone up, just like people's homes and everything's gone up 40 to 50%. I hate to say that 10% increase doesn't cover
Offset.
that cost, but it helps a little bit. And of course, reduced will stay at 40 cents for lunch, 30 cents for breakfast, and free will be free.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, with that, I'd like to make a recommendation. We approve the food service price increases for the 24-25 school year as presented.
All right, so we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Ryan. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sarah. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay.
Up next is our assurance statement. Every year, we have to approve assurance statements. The statement, Desi is kind enough, they are doing a thing called ARAP, so we only have one massive statement of assurance to approve instead of a lot of them last year, but it is the same thing. It's just making sure that we are compliant under ESSA and IDEA and all rules and regulations with the State Department and the U.S. Department of Education.
I'm assuming we are, right?
Yes, ma'am. Any questions? Favors that? Okay. Okay, with that, I'd like to make a recommendation that we approve the 24-25 assurances and GEPA statement programs under ESSA and IDEA.
All right, so we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion? I'll make a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jessica. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Up next, we have resource approval for instructional approval for instructional resources. Our first one, they're both renewals. Our first one is Lexia Core Learning. I'm sure you've seen your child may have used it, or you see our Lexia Star students and everything. It's part of what we use every day for literacy. For renewal, are there any questions on that? And the cost last year was $39,600 for K-8 for a one-year contract. I believe we want to continue this for our K-2 students, which is a cost of $38,310, but it's for 3 years. And Ms. Tabor, please clean me up. One of the reasons why we're wanting to do that is we have a pot of money from a grant we were awarded that was for about $32,000. And so we can use this to go ahead and lock this in at this price for 3 years instead of paying a one-year subscription price, and use that grant money and only have a small portion, I think $6,000 or $7,000 come out of general operating.
But the $38,310 is per year for the next 3 years.
No, it's for all 3 years.
So that's total. That's what we're spending total for 3 years.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. It's about $13,000 a year.
Okay.
But it goes from K2 instead of like right now we're doing K through 8.
Yes, ma'am. It goes to K2.
We had previous to this coming school year, we've used it K-8. It was really a resource that kind of helped us coming back from remote learning to do some intervention and acceleration. And what we're finding is that after second grade, a lot of students are finishing the program. And so at third and fourth grade, they don't need it anymore
Okay.
as much. So I met with each building, we looked at usage, we looked at our student data. We talked about what would they be doing, providing with intervention if we didn't have Lexia. And they felt like they had enough resources built up in other areas to provide that intervention. So I met with the grant coordinator and talked about transitioning to K2. Again, because most of our students are finishing it before they even get to fourth grade.
Okay.
So by the time they get to fifth, they're finished.
Okay.
So that's our reasoning for that. And then our funds from the grant will expire in September, so we need to use those.
Okay.
And so only about 6,000 was going to come out of general operation.
Yeah, it's right between 6 and 7. I think it's right at $6,500.
That's a lot, that's a
Well,
lot.
it's 65.14 and 61 cents. So,
Okay.
all right. With that, I'd like to make the recommendation that we approve the purchase of Lexia Core 5 for a 3-year contract for students in grades K2 for the amount of $38,310.
All right, so we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
Motion by Sarah. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ryan. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay.
And I didn't realize I got a little bit off schedule. I switched to BNC, so we need to go back up to B and Imagine Learning, and that is our Edgenuity. And what that is that's our virtual program for our students in grades 7 through 12. We've used this for a couple of years now and everything. It's been successful, so we're asking for a renewal of that.
Approximately how many kids do we have virtually?
We finished the school year with around 80.
80?
And we plan to keep that number pretty consistent for the next school year to watch those numbers. It's also our platform to provide continued academic services for our students where it's filled.
Okay. Okay.
With that, I'd like to make the recommendation that we approve the purchase of Edgenuity from Imagine Learning in the amount of $27,942.
All right, so we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
All motion?
Motion by Jessica. Do we have a second? I'll second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay.
Hey, Ms. Cawthon, we have a heavy personnel agenda this time, and so do you mind if we?
No, I'd like for us to go, yeah. I'd like for us to go into executive session. So it's 6:30 on the dot, and we're going to go into executive session.